more. We're joined by Anthony Chan. He's a former chief economist at JPMorgan Chase. Anthony, thanks so much for being with us. How important is this partnership internationally? The Chinese Premier Li Keqiang has called it, quote, a victory of multilateralism and free trade.
I think it's a very important step. One of the things I love about multilateral agreements is that it really puts all the countries on an equal footing and doesn't allow the larger countries to use leverage against the smaller countries to extract concessions. Now, it does make for greater competition, and those countries that have inefficiencies are going to have to work a little harder. But at the end of the day, when you boost productivity and efficiency and create more innovative products, everybody wins because that raises the standard of living for all. It's not that I don't like bilateral trade agreements. That certainly were the trend that we were moving in the direction in the last 4 years. I just like multilateral agreements a lot better. They're a lot more efficient and they promote more productivity, even though there are certainly costs associated with it.
This is a big deal for China, which has been pushing for RCEP. How important is it to the Chinese worker and to the Chinese economy?
Oh, I think it's extremely important for China. You see, this agreement is going to immediately reduce tariffs on 65% of the products. Over the next 20 years, it'll go up to 90%. And right now, when you look at China, that has about a 1.9 trillion trade relationship out there on its imports and exports, 30% of that is going to be covered by this. And the fact that 30% of the world population will be under the umbrella of this trade agreement, I think is significant. And by the way, by the year 2030, that number may go up to as much as 50%. So for China to be a part of 50% of world GDP economic activity, it is huge. And certainly something that China should be very excited about.
A good way for that number to go up is if India joins it, withdrew from the talks back in 2019. What is the importance of it being outside, and do you think eventually it will join?
I think over the near term, India is likely to focus its attention on its bilateral trade negotiations with Australia. But it is the 7th largest economy in the world, so it would behoove India at some point after it sort of completes the bilateral trade agreements that it's working on to start considering doing something like this and joining, given how large India is relative to the other top world economies. It certainly might not be a bad idea for India to consider this strongly. But over the near term, I think India has got other things that it's working on.
The U.S., notably not a member. Under Obama, it pushed for the TPP as part of a policy to contain China. China not part of the TPP. And Trump pulled out of that altogether, of course, favoring bilateral agreements over multilateral ones. Does that signify anything for Washington's economic influence in the Asia-Pacific region, its noticeable absence in this deal?
There's no question that when you consider that the U.S. accounts for 25%, almost 25% of the world GDP out there, and for it not to be included, that really sends a signal that the United States is not focused on trying to integrate with the world economies, certainly those that are developing. I think that right now we have such a polarized political environment that there are some people or some politicians that would love to move in that direction, but again, when you do that, you open yourself to criticism, and so both political parties are showing some reluctance. But over time, I think the economic realities will set in, and the United States will have to move in the direction of greater cooperation. And if that means creeping into some sort of a multilateral agreement, then that will be a benefit to the U.S. and certainly a benefit to other world economies.